As I sat in the Harvard classroom for my Chinese oral exam, the woman said something, and I had no idea what she said. And then I thought, ooh, I know. 我是课本, which is Chinese for I am a textbook. Record scratch, yup, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here, and we're going to explain that in our free-for-all today, which is titled The Harvard Chinese Test. But first, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell. I'm just trying to afford some avocado toast in this tough economy. This story is coming to you in two parts. Part one is The Man, Darren. Okay, so when I was in middle school, I decided that I was going to take Chinese. Little did I know that this would be a 5-year flirtation with pain and suffering. So yeah, I took it from 7th to 11th grade, and I guess I just did it because I thought it would be kind of cool. The unfortunate part is that it's also really hard. Like if you look at the screen, I have no idea what that says, and it looks nothing like English. So it came time for me to pick a Chinese name, and I decided that I would be Kong Jie. And I told my Chinese teacher this, and she said that Kong is the surname for Confucius. The only problem is that she was telling this to a middle schooler, and this was very confusing to me because I did not know who Confucius was, and I thought she was just saying confusing, but like in a different way that I hadn't learned. So yeah, in general, my Chinese experience taking Chinese for 5 years was very unhinged. Like there were key elements of Chinese that I just didn't learn / were not really emphasized. So yeah, to start us off, my friend decided to take on a Chinese name, and he decided to pick Something Wong, and this was just fine in our Harvard Chinese class. So one important part of Chinese is tones. It's basically how you emphasize the different vowel sounds. The closest equivalent I can think of in English is if you did not have tones in Chinese, it would be like pronouncing all vowel sounds in English like So instead of Luke Kenworthy, I would be Look Kenworth. But the thing is, my Chinese teacher just kind of let us get away with not using tones. She was just like, whatever, like tones are out. You are Look Kenworth. And with that, I just took tones and put them in the dumpster fire of my mind. The other thing that she let us get away with in a lot of ways was just using the phonetic pronunciation when we were writing. So you can actually just write out the way that it sounds, and you don't have to write the characters. The only thing is it's just not Chinese. Like this is not this. So yeah, I would just write out how the characters sounded without actually learning how to write the characters. And for the most part, I could get away with that, which was kind of crazy. What's also crazy that I could get away with is like in high school, when my studies were especially difficult, I would spend all night studying Chinese, and it just would not get drilled into my mind. So what I would do is I would show up to class and I would just look super tired and exhausted, and I would say, hey, I tried studying and honestly it just wasn't working out, and this would be the day of a test. So I'd be like, honestly it just wasn't working out, can I take the test later? And my Chinese teacher would be like, okay, sounds good. And I would just hang out in the class while all of my classmates took their test. And in hindsight, like I cannot believe that she let me get away with this. Like I'm so glad that she let me get away with this, and writing phonetically and the tone stuff, because if she didn't let me get away with that, I probably would have gotten wrecked. But it came with the downside of I didn't actually learn Chinese. This brings us to part 2, which is the test. So when I arrived at Harvard, we could take a test to place out of our foreign language requirement, and I decided I was just going to shoot my shot. It's worth noting that at this point, it had been 1.5 years since I last took Chinese, but honestly, that didn't matter. I walk into the auditorium, I sit down, and I look down at the test, and honestly, all I see are effectively Old Norse ruins. Like, I see a few characters that I recognize, like, whoa, which is I, and ni, which is you. By the way, all of the things that I say in Chinese in this video, I am not pronouncing correctly because of the tones thing. Like, I did not learn tones, so I apologize for that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm looking at this test, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I guessed on every question. I wrote 我是课本, which is I am a textbook, a bunch, because that was one of the few phrases that I knew. And then came the oral part of the exam, and I got completely wrecked in this part. So I walk in, and I'm very confident. I come in with a ni hao, which is hello, and she greets me with a ni hao back, and then she says some stuff that comes straight out of that one screen in the Matrix, and I'm like, I'm like trying to pick out the different parts of the phrase that I recognize. I formulate my response, and then I say something, and honestly, it probably could have been interpreted more as Hebrew than as Chinese. Like, it didn't make any sense, but I said it very confidently. I'm like, yeah, I took Chinese for 5 years. That's what's up. But in her mind, she was probably thinking, like, WTF is this guy doing? This doesn't make any sense. And then she says, Qing Li Kai. And I'm like, Qing Li Kai. What? And then she's like, Qing Li Kai. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And then she's like, please leave. She was telling me to leave in Chinese, but I could not understand her. So I was like, oh my gosh, this did not go well. And needless to say, I did not place out of Chinese. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching, and that, my friends, is our free-for-all.